In this lecture, we'll edit the walls very slightly to make sure we're happy with our shape, and we'll start placing in our first few objects. Okay, so we need to make sure that we're happy with our layout before adding in our objects. I'm looking at it and I'm thinking it's a little bit short, basically. If I look at my reference, that's a bit taller, and I quite like the height of this one. So I'm going to make the whole thing a bit taller. I could make it obviously thinner this way and this way, but taller seems to make sense for the bricks that I've got. So let's grab the boards. Let's try and grab them all. Deselect that brick there. Oh, and I think, no, I haven't got that selected. Looks like my cutter object here is actually still selected in the active object. Let's change the active object to this one. Yeah, that's all right. Just checking that I hadn't got that selected as well. So let's move that upwards, G then Z, and start thinking about the height that I want. Probably closer to here, I think. Let's have another look at the reference. You don't have to follow your references exactly or precisely. You can have shorter rooms if you want. I just quite like the height of this one, so I'm going to stick with that, I think. So that's good. I'll add another set of bricks then. So I'll select these ones, Shift D, then Z, move those upwards. They can overlap just a tiny bit. Hold down Shift for smaller increments. Makes moving things a little bit easier. I'm just going to move that a little bit further up. About there, I think. And we want to move them around a bit. So I'll just grab this one, move it to the end. So G then X. And select these and move them in. So G then X. Nice easy way to edit the bricks there. I'll do the same for this one. In fact, select the end brick and bring it across. G then Y this time. And select them all and bring them back in. So G then Y. Bring them back in about a little bit further, maybe about to there. Now, do I want another row of bricks? I think what I'm going to do is just select all these. Make sure I haven't got anything else selected. Get my 3D cursor down the bottom here. Your 3D cursor snaps to objects. That's why I'm kind of pointing it at that area there and clicking it. Change to the 3D cursor as my pivot point and scale in the Z. And just make them a little bit taller. And that's fine. Okay, that's good. I think I might make my cutter object a little bit taller as well. Let me just play around with it a little bit. What happens if I just move it up? Is that tall enough? Maybe a little bit bigger. So scale in the Z. I've still got my 3D cursor as my pivot point, so just be aware of that when you're doing it. I might go fairly high up with this, but I think that's a good starting point. But let's go back to bounding box center. In fact, no, let's move the 3D cursor here. That makes more sense, doesn't it? And use the 3D cursor again. Scale in the Z. And move it up fairly close to the top there. I like that. That looks like a grand room now, doesn't it? Excellent. Just having a look at my reference, making sure I'm happy with it. You do want to have a good look around and make sure that everything's working for you before moving on with this particular stage. Looking at these bricks here, we've got 3 lines or joins close to each other there. It's okay probably here where there's one on top of the other, but 3 on top of the other, even 4 just there, looks a little bit off. So what I'm going to do, just grab these 2, G then X, move, Y, sorry, G then Y, move that out slightly, and this one here, actually no, this one here, into edit mode, select the 2 end faces, and G then Y. Move those across. What I just did, stupidly, was put it on top of this one there. So what I'm going to do, I'll just delete this one, and just do a little bit of editing of the wall, basically, to make sure it's not right on top of each other with these joins. That looks a bit better, I think. And let's have a good look around, make sure there's not any where it just doesn't seem to work as a wall. Possibly this area here, I can just go into edit mode with these 2, Alt Z to go to X-ray mode, and G then X, oh that's Y, and bring that across to there. That makes more sense. So just a bit of editing. It probably wouldn't really be noticeable, Alt Z by the way, to get out of X-ray mode, but I like to have these things so I'm happy with them and don't have to change them later. I'll change this one as well up here. Oh, let's go to Alt Z again and bring that across. This one as well is kind of on top of the other one, so we'll do this one as well. G then X this time. Just remembering the axes is the most awkward thing with these things. This one here as well, I think, these 2. And this is probably the last one I need to do. So I'll keep jumping into X-ray mode and just moving those across, and that's fine. That's all looking good. Still a good look around. It can take you a little while. of just tinkering a bit with these sort of things, that's absolutely fine. It's worth taking your time at this initial stage. Okay, I'm not going to do any more. So now's a good time to catch up with me, see if you need to do any editing of your walls so the lines don't sort of match up too much. Right, let's bring some other objects in, ready to get the size and shape of things. What I'll do is I'll bring back my wizard, but I won't bring back my room outline. So I'll make this come back and this one invisible. So there's our wizard and the height of the wizard. He turned himself into a cube by accident. Oh, just make sure I go into object mode and let's start adding just some cubes or cylinders, things like that, that match the shape of the objects that I want to create. So I want some bookcases. So shift right click to move the 3D cursor, shift A to add, mesh, and then cube. And we'll just start scaling these things into position, scale in the Y. It's always good to go to side view and front view for this. Also, it's helpful to have the item menu up here, and then you can see how wide things are and how big things are, and think about what size a bookcase might actually be. Bookcases, I think, are more like 30 centimeters, so 0.3 would make more sense. And suddenly we're getting a sense of the scale of certain things in the vicinity here. Actually, I do want a table just here, so I'm going to move that one up. So G then Z, G then X. I want a tall one as well, so scale in the Z. I've still got 3D cursor, so I'll change that back to bounding box center for this one. Scale in the X. I'm always scaling by the X and Y and Z because I don't want things to be at weird angles or anything like that. So it's helpful to do that. I'll kind of make a table. So mesh, shift A, add mesh cube, and then we'll change that to a tabletop. Tabletop, probably 1.5 maybe. And then it's the tabletop, so it'll be 0.1, so 10 centimeters. And what do we have in the Y? Probably about 0.6, isn't it? 60 centimeters. So that's a nice tabletop size. Fairly chunky by the looks of things. I think they're about 60 centimeters off the ground. So I'll make some chair legs that are 60 centimeters high. I think that's right. I'm on a desk at the moment. I could measure it, but I'm pretty sure it's around, oh no, maybe it's 80 centimeters. Yeah, maybe 80 centimeters. So shift D to duplicate this one, and I'll just change the dimensions here. So X and Y can be the same, and they can be 0.2, so 20 centimeters. That's quite a thick, chunky table leg. That might be a bit too big, actually. 0.15 make more sense. Still quite chunky. And 0.6 to start with. And let's bring that up. G then Z. So that's 60 centimeters. I'm actually going to measure my table. That's good practice to actually get the right measurements. I was way out. 75 centimeters this is. It is adjustable, so but let's change this. In fact, 0.75. We'll go 0.8 actually. That's probably a little bit more typical. Maybe, I don't know actually. 0.8 will be fine though. It can be a tall table. That doesn't matter too much. So G then Z, move that up. And let's go to front view and move that across. G then X. And move the table top. I was measuring to the top of the table, so I'll bring it to about there. Okay, that looks nice. Let's move it across a little bit. So G then X. And I could just add an array modifier to this, so I can have one going this way and one going that way. Sometimes quicker to do that. Depends what you're comfortable with. You can just duplicate it. But for now, I'll add an array. Then if I edit this in any way, it will update the other ones as well. So add modifier array. And I want to go in the Y-axis. So turn off the X factor. So turn that to 0. Turn the Y factor on, and we'll turn that to, let's say, 5. It's going the wrong way, so it's -5. -5, I think -5, that should be, why has it gone 4.9? Not sure, but we're roughly there. And then I'll just bring that down manually to there. And then we want another array. If you're going one direction than the other, you want to do 2 different arrays. So add array. Hopefully you can see from this what an array is. It just adds extra objects, but in this case it's the not the Z-axis, it's the X-axis. So the X-axis going across this way. Let's go to front view and line that up a bit more. Oh, I can't select my wizard. He's in the way at the moment. Let's get the array working properly. So we're on the correct one, about there. Okay, so a very quick table in there, and we'll edit this and make it look a bit better later on. But for now, we just want to get the shapes in so we know exactly where things are and how they'll work. I'll use this object, so Shift D, and then Y, and that can be my chairs. But for this, I'm just going to modify this slightly. So the X array, I'll bring that back in this way. I'll make them all a bit thinner. So I'll change the one object, because remember, this is one object that's kind of being arrayed. So the X and Y, we're going to make that point, what did I make it last time? 0.6, that doesn't sound right. Where have I gone wrong here? 0.6, that doesn't make sense. That's because it's including the array. It's a bit funny there. Okay, what I'll do then, that's interesting. So what happens if I hide these? I hadn't thought about that. It's including the array in these sizes. So if I hide them from the viewport, it tells me the precise size. That makes sense now. So 0.1 should work for a table leg. The height seems a bit tall as well. So we'll go to, I happen to have a tape measure next to me, and I keep it next to me for this reason, that I can just quickly measure things and think, how long is that? How far is that? And so forth. So 0.5. And let's bring that down. G then Z. And I'll turn these back on. So I've got my small chair there. Let's just resize this. So it's 0.6. That's probably going to be about 0.5. The Z looks good, and this will be about 0.5. And then we'll just move that on top of the other one. Going to top view, kind of want to hide the floorboard's ceiling there. That's in the outliner, of course. So we've got a chair there. G then Z, move that down. Again, I'm overlapping, that's absolutely fine. So I've just got a simple kind of stool type thing there. G, then Shift Z, move it into a rough position. Maybe it'll be slightly rotated there. And it'll probably have a back as well. Let's, for the sake of that, I'll duplicate these, Shift D to duplicate, bring those up, and I'll just turn off the, which array is it? This one, isn't it? Yep. And it's G then YY for the local Y axis. So G then YY. So that's the local coordinates that I was talking about earlier compared to the global coordinates. And I'm going to scale them in Z. So that's just a really bad chair, but it's sort of working. Shift D, scale YY, scale Z, G then YY. Okay, so we've got a really bad chair there, but it's helping us to visualize how things are going to look, and we can smarten it up later just by editing the shape. So make sure you've caught up with me by placing these different objects into position, and of course make sure you've saved your work ready for next time.